Words are the tools of our trade. Being able to persuade others, being able to explain to others, and being able to achieve the outcomes that clients are looking for. And it comes from the technical abilities, so working hard to have the technical skills, but then being able to apply them.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Student Lawyer podcast series. Whether you're at school, sixth form, university, thinking about a career in law, or exploring law careers, you're in the right place. We are the one-stop shop for student lawyers. If you'd like to join the Student Lawyer as a writer, please email hello@thestudentLawyer.com. Hello everyone, welcome to the Student Lawyer podcast. My name is Stephanie, I'm a future Clifford Chance trainee solicitor and the host of today's episode. Joining me today is Emma Matebalavu, Global Head of Global Financial Markets at Clifford Chance, who specialises in real estate finance, securitisation and all types of structured debt. During this episode, Emma explains what her role as Global Head of Global Financial Markets and practicing solicitor both involve, the global events impacting the global financial markets, and shares the details of one of the most memorable deals that she has advised on. Emma also talks about the key trends that aspiring commercial lawyers should keep abreast of, the key skills that aspiring Clifford Chance solicitors should master ahead of their assessment day and training contract interviews, the top qualities of an exceptional trainee solicitor, and explains how successful commercial solicitors continuously win and retain business. Finally, Emma reveals the one piece of advice that she wants all future and current trainee solicitors to know, and shares the highlight of her working week. So without further ado, welcome to the Student Lawyer podcast, Emma. It's wonderful to have you here with us today.
Lovely to meet you. I'm very happy to be here.
Before we get started with the questions, I thought that we could play a little game of two truths and a lie, the legal version. So I'm going to start off by giving three statements about the law. Two will be true and one will be a lie, and we'll reveal at the end what the correct answer is.
Gosh, I'm a little bit nervous about this. Let's go for it.
Okay, so one, it is illegal to queue jump at tube stations in London.
Okay.
It's the Metropolitan Police Act 1839 states that it is against the law to knock on a person's front door and then run off immediately after.
Okay.
And number three, it is illegal to die in Parliament.
Gosh. Okay.
Three statements about the law. Two are true and one is a lie.
Great. So we tend to play this in our team, but they tend to be mainly about people's adventurous holidays rather than historic legal issues. So I'm going to go for the 1839 law being true. The more specific, the better I find on the truths. So between queue jumping and dying in Parliament, I mean, it does seem a little harsh to be in trouble with the law once you're dead, but it does sound like it's like the arcane thing that Parliament might have legislated for. So I think I'm going to say that queue jumping is not illegal.
All right. We will reveal all at the end.
Oh no, the suspense.
Okay. So, Emma, you qualified into securitisation and real estate finance at Clifford Chance, but you're also the global head of global financial markets. Now, we'll come back on to real estate finance and securitisations a little bit later on, but I was wondering if you could please explain what your role as global head of global financial markets involves.
Great. Very happy to. Quite a lot of globals in the title. So effectively at Clifford Chance, we have what we call an executive leadership group. So that's in corporate terms, kind of like the board. So it's the partners and some of our business professionals who set the direction of the firm. So Global Financial Markets is one of our three main business units in the firm. So we have Global Financial Markets, we have corporate, and we have litigation and dispute resolution. And so I head that practice area, which forms roughly 40% of the firm by sort of revenues and headcount. And as suggested, it's a global team. So that's roughly 230 partners and around 1,000 lawyers globally. So it's a super, super interesting role. Financial markets covers a wealth of really interesting products. I like to think of it as a spectrum. So it goes from raising money in the capital markets through IPOs, through to debt issuances by corporates and by banks, through to all the structured products that we'll come on to talk about, and then all of our lending products. So lending in relation to companies, but also in relation to other industry sectors in which we specialise. So, for example, it would include asset finance, which is basically aviation, real estate finance, clues in the name, non-movable, infrastructure, energy, and fund finance. So there's a lot within that group, all of which sort of interlink. And then my job really is, as I say, to sort of set the strategy for GFM, and to set, the firm's strategy with the other members of our executive leadership group, to look at fun jobs like promotions. So looking at who our partners are going to be in the future and helping to develop and bring them through to partnership, and to look at also any areas of investment where we might want to grow as a firm. I'm responsible for financials. And what else do I do? Those are the main jobs. I also have another hat, which is that I look after our bank sector. So on the client side, I'm responsible for a number of our relationships with bank clients, and that's really working with teams of relationship partners who are managing those client relationships for us. And then finally, I am also proud to be our executive leadership group sponsor for Accelerate, which is our gender parity network.
I must say, it's so impressive and inspiring listening to what you do for Clifford Chance and how you've made it, how you've helped contribute to make it the firm that it is. And it's such an amazing firm, and you have amazing people and you do amazing work. And listening to everything that you do to help the clients and future trainees and the current fee earners and all the support staff as well. It's just exceptional what you do to help develop this fantastic business. So I just think it's really impressive and really inspiring. And thank you for explaining it so well. And it's inspiring, I must say.
Well, I think I'm very lucky. I've been with the firm for 23 years, and, I'm very lucky to work with very talented, colleagues. So every day is a bit different. Yeah. Lots of new challenges. But generally speaking, it's fun.
I mean, this is what impresses me about, this is what I love about Clifford Chance so much. It's just a hub of talented people that inspire one each other. So I'm really looking forward to becoming part of the team soon.
Likewise.
I'm wondering if you could talk us through the day in a life of a Clifford Chance real estate finance lawyer and securitisations lawyer, and why you decided to specialise in these practice areas.
Sure. I mean, maybe I'll start with why I ended up where I did, because back when I was a trainee, I had studied law with French law. So I was lucky enough to spend some time in Paris as a student. And I've always wanted to, be part of a global firm. So Clifford Chance really appealed to me for that reason. And so when I was in Paris, I learned a little bit of Italian, not a lot, but then I was really fortunate enough to spend time in our Rome office as a trainee for 6 months, and which was obviously wonderful. But funnily enough, in Rome, the work that we were doing at the time was securitisation. Now, back then, way back when in 1999, I didn't really know what securitization was. I did know that the team of securitization lawyers worked incredibly hard and were quite famous for long hours and late nights. But nonetheless, the lure of Rome persuaded me that it would be worth having a go. And it was a really good decision. So my main advice to trainees and to everyone is to be open-minded about what you think you're going to enjoy, because I'm not sure that anyone really knows until they try it. So I really enjoyed securitization work, it's quite structured. So there's a lot of law and there's a lot of structure involved. It's quite collaborative because you're effectively trying to help a company or a financial institution raise money secured over portfolios of financial assets. And I quite enjoy the documentation. There's a capital markets aspect to it. So I really enjoyed my seat in Rome, and I then qualified into the team in London as it was. And then fast forward through, my career as an associate, working on lots of sort of landmark transactions, deals of the year. We were very busy through the 2000s. It was a growing area, right up until 2007. Many of your listeners may not really remember this because I now realize it's a long time ago, but it was pretty formative for me because I was going through our new partner process at the time of the financial crisis, which really impacted structured debt and securitization. So when I came back as a new partner in 2008, the world, and then in 2009 from maternity leave, the world had changed a lot. And I started to do restructurings because finance lawyers, when they're not doing new transactions, may be restructuring old transactions which are in distress. So I ended up restructuring a number of real estate loans, which were the loans in the CMBS, in the commercial mortgage-backed securitization structures that I'd worked on pre-crisis. And so I morphed from being a securitization lawyer into a real estate finance lawyer. And happily, over the last decade or so, I do a combination of the two. And I've also been very active in buying and selling, helping clients buy and sell and finance portfolios of assets. So that would be loans which are performing loans or sometimes non-performing loans. So that's been really, really, really interesting.
For the past 4 years, I have been very lucky in the sense that I have had the shoulders of friends and family to sob on, and unfortunately for them to vent at, whilst I have been under pressure and stress from university deadlines, and whilst going through the grueling process of training contract applications and interviews. They have been my unofficial therapists, and during tough times have reminded me that there is always light at the end of the tunnel. But it's not always possible to rely on a friend or family member to help you through difficult times, especially if they are not trained therapists. And sometimes speaking to somebody outside of your family or friendship circle is a better option anyway. If you're going through stressful times, looking to improve the quality of your life, vent, or need somebody to remove the weight of the world from your shoulders, BetterHelp, the sponsor of today's podcast, may be right for you. BetterHelp is the largest therapy platform in the world, and it changes the way people approach their mental health and helps them tackle life's challenges by providing accessible and affordable care. The therapists at BetterHelp are qualified to help you through everything from daily stresses to anxiety, relationships, depression, addictions, eating, sleeping, trauma, anger, family conflicts, grief, self-esteem, and much more. After you sign up, BetterHelp will match you to a therapist who fits your objectives, preferences, and the type of issues that you are dealing with. So whilst a friend or family member, aka an unofficial therapist, is great to speak to, therapists on BetterHelp include psychologists, family therapists, licensed clinical social workers, and licensed professional counsellors. Visit www.betterhelp.com/TSL for 10% off your first month. That's www.betterhelp.com/TSL for 10% off of your first month. I know that I'm looking forward to using BetterHelp to help me get through the SQE when I start it next year.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Emma. That was a really interesting career journey that you've had. Yeah, I think that having experience in different areas, ones that you may not think that you may enjoy doing, is such a valuable thing to do. So yeah, and God, going to Paris and Rome sounds just fantastic as well. I've never been to Rome.
Yeah, that was definitely a plus. And I think one of the things that you realize, once you've been doing this for a while, not everyone's career is linear. And I think one of the interesting things about law as a career is that obviously the markets change and evolve continuously and sometimes very rapidly, as does regulation and as do the players, as do the clients. And so that's been a big evolution in my career from, a market which was predominantly bank-led in Europe prior to the financial crisis, to the emergence of many more private equity funds and debt funds, and other types of capital who are much more prevalent today. So that's been a really, really interesting evolution. And I think it's quite interesting to sort of be, having a front row seat to see that happening sort of in real time, based on transactions and the work that we do.
I started this podcast, Emma, because I wanted, what me and my co-host did, I wanted to give aspiring lawyers the advice that they needed to make informed decisions to help them with their career. So although I am a real advocate for that, I also understand, because I myself haven't had a linear career journey into law, that taking different paths, ones that you wouldn't necessarily think are strategic decisions, are sometimes the right decisions, because these weird and wonderful detours that you can take just make you become sometimes a lot more eyes open to the world, and new experiences can help you make the right decision in the end. So I agree with what you're saying.
I think that's right. And I'm always somewhat suspicious of people who have their whole lives mapped out, because life doesn't work that way. So I think there's lots of fortuitous happenstance that happen along the way, and you need to be open to that. You need to make sure that you're alive to the opportunities. I mean, I come from a farming background in rural Northern Ireland, so I had no idea what any of these disciplines were, even at university. And I think for many students, it's not necessarily clear exactly what it means in practice. And so I think there's a little bit of suck it and see, give it a go, see what you enjoy, see what you're good at, and you'll figure it out along the way.
Absolutely. Thank you. So Emma, what is the most significant or perhaps memorable deal that you have advised on, and what is the reason for your answer?
That's a tough one. There's a lot.
I'm sure.
Of years. I might just give one, because it's always good, I think, that to have something that people recognise. So just going back to that period of the financial crisis, 2007, I was working on it was actually an infrastructure transaction, but it was effectively what we call a whole business securitisation of BAA, which at the time owned all of the airports in the UK. So Heathrow, Gatwick, Stansted, but also Edinburgh, Glasgow. There was a big group of airports all owned by BAA. And they had a lot of leverage finance, and we were refinancing that through this big securitisation issuance. And it was going to be wrapped by what we called monoline insurers. But basically, during the course of this large transaction, many things happened. So first of all, the financial crisis came along, and many of these insurance companies, which were going to provide guarantees of the bonds, they were all downgraded. So suddenly, these guarantees were worthless. The Competition Authority decided to break up BAA and require them to dispose of some of the airports, because it was anti-competitive that they owned all the airports in the UK. And also they were going through a pricing review with their regulator. And by the end of the transaction, I think we closed in 2008. I think I was in hospital just having had my daughter, my second child, by the end of the transaction. I think various clients got married or had children. It was this sort of long transaction that took about 2.5 years, and the world completely changed during the course of it, both on the professional and personal level. So that's quite memorable for many reasons. But it was still a very interesting transaction.
I can see why that is your answer, to be honest. I mean, what an incredible transaction to work on. Business that wants to own all the airports in the country, and then to have that marked by all of these personal events as well.
I think the thing that I think it was right at the end, or maybe it was just after closing, they opened Terminal 5.
Oh, yeah.
Because one of the reasons they needed all this funding was for all the capital expenditure to build Terminal 5 and to then, redo the other terminals. And I remember really clearly that suddenly, all this work and all this money that's gone into it, and all the stress testing on the first day, the baggage didn't work. And there was negative headlines for Heathrow on T5. But it works pretty well now. I was in New York this week, and Terminal 5 is working.
You know what I was about to say? I'm going away for some winter sun next week, and I'm flying from Terminal 5. So now when I go there, I'll be thinking of this transaction. So Emma, what global events are currently impacting or potentially or have the potential to impact your client's business at the moment?
Now, that's a big question. Obviously, at the moment, we seem to be in a slight perma crisis. So there's been so much going on in the world over the last couple of years that it's hard to know where to start. I mean, I guess we've come out of the pandemic, and the pandemic still has a legacy in terms of the level of government debt and sort of cash that's been injected into the system, followed by, of course, inflation and higher interest rates. So from my perspective, looking across the financial markets, increased interest rates have completely changed the picture. We went through a period of over a decade of money being effectively free to borrow, which is extremely unusual in historic terms. But people kind of got used to it. So now to have interest rates back at, not unusually high levels historically, but that's created a real shock to the system. And many of the businesses that are funding themselves through debt, face a sharp price correction, because the amount that you would pay to buy a company or to buy, to build infrastructure, to buy a property, all of that was predicated on a certain cost of debt. And now it's a lot more expensive. So that's had a really big impact. It's also had a big impact on the capital markets and the level of IPOs and debt issuance. So that's probably number one. But of course, we also have, so much geopolitical noise in the world today, with wars, unfortunately and sadly now both in Europe, in Ukraine, but also in the Middle East, quite high geopolitical tension in other places. Next year is going to be a very interesting year for markets because we have elections, obviously the US being a really important one for the global financial order, and potentially UK elections, but also elections in other countries around the globe. So there's really a lot going on, and what our clients crave most is stability, and stability is being in short supply. So we're hoping that in 2024 there is a little bit more certainty around the outlook. But based on what's been going on over the last 5 years, I wouldn't necessarily predict certainty. It seems that we may be in for more surprises along the way.
Thank you for sharing that. Would you say that those are the key business trends that aspiring solicitors should keep up to date with ahead of their training contracts interviews?
Yeah, I mean, I think as global citizens, they're topics of interest to all of us. So, I mean, there's just lots of themes in the world today which are interesting, and some of them are obviously concerning. So those are the themes that I think impact markets the most. I think the other big themes that obviously override most of what we do around technology, and obviously at the moment, huge focus on the rise of AI and what that's going to mean for many businesses, including many of our clients' businesses, including the legal business itself. So tech is a really big global theme, as is, sustainability and energy transition, some of which has been accelerated by the conflict in Ukraine, and the need to move away from fossil fuels. And that's all of those themes are having an impact on the sorts of transactional work and the sort of contentious work that we see globally, actually.
Thank you for sharing that as well. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of things, but it's interesting to see that a number of them are interlinked with one another. So they have that crossover. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. What about the key skills that aspiring Clifford Chance solicitors should master ahead of their assessment day or training contract interviews? What are you looking for?
What are we looking for? So I think everyone's unique, so you don't need to be the same as anyone else. But the core attributes that make successful trainees and good lawyers, I think it's intellectual curiosity. So it's really important. The academic side is really important in law. It's really about corralling a lot of information, a lot of structures, and being able to condense that into simple terms. So being able to explain things in simple terms to your clients, to your colleagues, is really important. And in order to be able to do that, you need the sort of intellectual ability to digest a lot of information and understand things readily. And then I think that ties into the second one, which is really that ability to communicate both orally and in writing. So that's really important because words are the tools of our trade. So being able to persuade others, being able to explain to others, and being able to achieve the outcomes that clients are looking for, being able to instill trust and confidence in others, that's all really, really important. And it comes from the technical abilities, so working hard to have the technical skills, but then being able to apply them in practice on a daily basis is really important. And the application also kind of blends into how we run matters. So, in a law firm, you will tend to be working in teams. And so the client will also be a team. So if you think of yourself as the client and Clifford Chance being a single team. And in my practice in global financial markets, very often it's transactional, which means that people are trying to achieve something, which is whether they're issuing a bond or acquiring a company with debt to a timeline. So being able to manage your time, being able to prioritize well, being able to, be reliable, to deliver. Fundamentally, law is a service industry. So when we promise our clients that we will get them the documents by Thursday, then, being true to our word and delivering the documents is important. So it's really important to be able to deliver. And so you will have balanced, essay deadlines as a student and have different time commitments within school and within life prior to joining Clifford Chance, but that's really important. And then what else? What have I missed? I think communication, being able to manage and anticipate. I really think that people who excel are able to anticipate. So if you can foresee problems and you can solve them before they become problems, then you're much more valuable than people who can just present a problem without a solution.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Just going back to your point on intellectual curiosity and being able to explain complex issues in their simple terms. So when I was started off my journey to securing a training contract, I was doing everything that I could to become commercially aware, and then in order to explain just mention complex issues simply. So what I did was create a table which broke down all the commercial issues and legal issues, and would read a FT article and then analyze it. And from
well done, you.
Thank you. I mean, it took a really long time to get my head wrapped around, the commercial world and to be able to do this. But making bullet points in what an issue meant to shareholders or creditors, that enabled me to explain it simply and concisely. Now that worked for me, and that's the advice I give to other people that are going through that process now. Have you come across another way of doing it that has worked for trainee solicitors that have helped them become able to be concise and explain complex issues simply?
I haven't got a particular method, so no, but I think if you think about when you're really at school and at university, most of the subjects that you do, whether it's law or non-law, you will be absorbing lots of information and being able to write, essays or be able to present that both in writing or orally. So, that is good practice. I think the commercial awareness is something that people always find more difficult because it's not necessarily what they have studied either at school or at university. I think today there's a lot more available. So the FT it's great, but also there's loads of podcasts, and I think a lot of the stuff that's interesting is in the news and is kind of freely available. And so thinking about that in terms of what it means for various types of business and having a sort of understanding of the macro, I think is really useful because it kind of puts it into context. How do you practice being articulate? I guess it is practice. So looking for opportunities in your studies to present and to summarize, and to try not to be, long-winded, and try to figure out what is the point. Those are all good legal skills.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Emma. What are the top qualities of an exceptional first seat trainee? And do these differ to a third or fourth seat trainee?
So, on this one, I don't know that there is a sort of top quality that changes over time. Interestingly, for all of your listeners, the skills that we assess for the training contract interview are also the skills we assess for the lawyers when they become associates. So their appraisal and their feedback is based around the same core attributes. And actually the same is true of the partners, and the way that we look at them, and the way that we look at, the promotions. And so the skills don't really change, but obviously you hone them as you go along. So we probably, we understand that first seat trainees are new to the role. And so there's a big learning curve. And so the sooner that people kind of get engaged, involved, ask questions, the more quickly they can go up that learning curve. It's different for different people. So by the time you get to third or fourth seat, it's likely that you'll be more comfortable with the world of work if you haven't had a job prior to joining the firm, and that you'll have a better sense of the pace of work. So sometimes that's more challenging for first seaters. But yeah, basically you'll the skills are the same all the way through, and I think some people can accelerate that learning curve more quickly than others, depending on what they've done, maybe before, if they've got relevant work experience. I think being, as I said before, open, enthusiastic, willing to learn, really getting stuck in is really the best way to create a good impression at the outset. And then, really exceptional trainees quickly sort of get an understanding of both their role, but also the bigger picture. Because sometimes the way I think about it in the training contract is you can go from being sort of task oriented. So someone gives you a task, you go off and you complete the task and you deliver it back again. That's fine. And that's probably, what you're being asked to do as a first seat trainee. But as you evolve towards qualification as a lawyer, then we're really expecting you to start to understand the evolution in my world of a transaction. So what comes next, what your role is, how you can help others, and actually being somewhat proactive, taking initiative and taking ownership of the transaction as a whole. That's what will kind of accelerate you. And then just being, as I said before, very reliable, because you're a core team member. And so other people will really appreciate your contribution. If you're there and you're helping them, then, that's obviously the goal.
Yeah, so it's about being proactive rather than reactive. And that in turn, helps you to spot problems before they've even arisen. So yeah, thank you for that. And, I think that all of these skills that you mentioned, being organised, a team player, having great communication, and being reliable, I think that those are all exceptional skills to have. So, working on those and really developing them through the training contract, I feel like it would, just really, really help you develop as a lawyer. So thank you very much for giving those points, Emma. So how does a successful commercial solicitor win and retain business?
So this is a great question. And what I think is the most important thing is do a good job. So if you think about any services that you purchase, you're most likely to return and recommend to your friends any service that is high quality and that you like. So law is no different. Clients entrust us with important matters, and they pay a lot of money for the legal advice that they instruct us on. And so, it's really, really important to provide high quality work. And that goes to all the themes that we've been discussing. So, legally and technically, high quality, and also in terms of service delivery, really looking after the clients and, being their trusted advisor. So that's how you win work and win repeat work, because others will see that. On most of our deals, there are a lender and a borrower, for example. So each client will have their own legal teams. And most markets in which we operate are relatively small, actually. So you build a network and you build a reputation relatively quickly in the area in which the sector or the area in which you specialise. So consistently doing good work is obviously the number one calling card of any lawyer. And then you can add to that by obviously spending more time with clients and really building those relationships. So the better you understand your clients and their needs, the better service you can provide. And it's also a people business. So all of our clients are, working for large institutions, but they're also individuals. And so being able to help the clients you work with, whether it's explaining to a junior client how a particular provision works, or whether it's providing, really strategic advice to a senior leader within an organization, that's all based on them, trusting your judgment and feeling that you've got their best interests at heart, and that you're really there for them through thick and thin. And often, that could be, long nights and challenging, but then that tends to create a bit of a bond, actually, when everyone's in the.
Yeah, I can imagine. No, I mean, I really like that answer as well, because, it goes to show that it's not just about the actual legal work. It's so much more than that. As you said, it's the legal, technical, how you deliver, the way your rapport with clients. It's everything that you do, and you mentioned as well reputation, and that, to be honest, as I said, I really like this question, and it's a question that I ask a lot of people that come onto the podcast, and something that continues to come up is, your reputation is everything. So I can understand that, it's, although it might be difficult at some times, always giving 110%, because, we're all human beings at the end of the day, and we get tired sometimes. But you could, deliver a piece of work for somebody and, at that point in time, not give, 100%. And that person's first impressions of you are, this person doesn't produce high quality work. And then that's your reputation then on the line. So I think that it just really goes to show that giving 110% all the time is it's just part of the job, and the quality of the work, is in every sense, your work, the legal, technical, and how you deliver it, it just has to be top quality all the time. And that is how I can see you win and retain business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we say, global elite firms, that's really that elite is that quality in everything that we do, both, understanding the relevant industry and the sector in which the clients operate, really understanding the legal and the technical structuring around all of that, and delivering the advice in a way that is client friendly. And I think we kind of pride ourselves as a firm on doing that in a human way, as you say, not being sort of super aggressive, but just being partners to our clients and working with them to achieve their goals.
So Emma, we're approaching the end of the interview. I still have a couple more questions, but I wanted to ask, what would you like all future and current trainee solicitors to know?
What would I like everyone to know? This one stumped me a little bit, I'm afraid. I mean, I guess some of the themes that we've talked about, and I guess knowing that they can ask questions, that's maybe a little bit of a simple answer, but it's important to know that no one expects anyone to know everything. And, one of the joys of this job is that you are constantly learning. And I am too. I've got a few articles in my bag for the weekend. Someone sent around a new case yesterday that may change things. So we're all learning all the time, and no one has all of the answers. So I think be open, ask questions, and seek to expand your knowledge. I think that's really important, and probably in any career, right? But in order to kind of get the most out of the opportunities presented to you, be open, ask questions, maybe time them, maybe, store them up for an appropriate time, but do keep that mind open and inquiring, I think.
Thank you. So before I reveal what the one lie is of our two truths and a lie game, Emma, for the listeners' sake, today is Friday. We're recording this on Friday the 1st of December. It's just stopped snowing outside where I am anyway. And so, Emma, what has been the highlight of this week for you?
Gosh, that's a big question. I tend to feel like sometimes I have daily wins. Some days it's like, oh yeah, today's win is this. And, some days it feels like you're going backwards instead of forwards. So it's every day for me. This week, what have I been up to? I was in our New York office on Monday and Tuesday. And I had a very good meeting with a very senior person and a client in New York. So that was probably the highlight, being able to arrange that meeting, backed off an introduction from the client in Europe, and having them recommend me was a nice personal highlight. And then for GFM, for my global practice group, it's always people winning new mandates, seeing new clients. So we had a great relationship meeting with at the new GC of a major bank yesterday. So that was really great. Yeah, so I guess 2 highlights this week.
Wow, Emma, you were killing it. Honestly, the highlights of your week are, phenomenal, I must say. So let's go back on to the 2 truths and a lie. So I gave 3 statements and said it's illegal to queue jump at a tube station in London. The Metropolitan Police Act states that it's against the law to knock on a person's front door and then run off immediately. And 3, it is illegal to die in Parliament. Now, Emma, you said that queue jumping was the lie. So
I'm wrong.
Well, the Metropolitan Police Act 1839 that spoke about knocking on people's doors and running away. That is true. Okay, so that is I'm trying to think which way to reveal this.
The big
how to build as much suspense as possible. Number 1, as I said, it's illegal to queue jump in tube stations in London. That is actually true as well. And you said it was a lie. So it's illegal to die in Parliament, and that is actually false. And people, a lot of people think that's true, but it's not.
Well, there we go. You did well. You lied convincing. So congratulations.
Thank you. I was shocked when I heard it was illegal to queue jump in tube stations.
Yeah,
but
I might need to police that rule in future.
Well, Emma, thank you so much for joining us and for talking to us and explaining, your role at Clifford Chance and explaining about the global financial markets and providing so much advice to all aspiring lawyers about how to secure training contracts and how to become an exceptional lawyer. You're inspiring, honestly. What you have done for the profession is, as I said, inspiring and wonderful to watch. As a future trainee, to have somebody like yourself leading the way, I just have to thank you for that. So anyway, thank you, and thank you for being a guest on the Student Lawyer podcast.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It was absolutely a pleasure. Really enjoyed it, and it was helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone for listening to another episode of the Student Lawyer podcast, and we'll see you back again here next time.
To hear more of the Student Lawyers podcast, hit the subscribe button and leave us a star rating and review. If you would like to join the Student Lawyer as a writer, please email hello@thestudentlawyer.com. Don't forget that if you're looking for a way to remove the weight of the world from your shoulders, the therapists at BetterHelp are qualified to help you through your daily stresses. Just visit www.betterhelp.com/TSL for 10% off of your first month. That's betterhelp.com/TSL for 10% off of your first month.